I say to President Macron, Prime Minister Carney, and Prime Minister Starmer, when mass murderers, rapists, baby killers, and kidnappers thank you, you're on the wrong side of justice. You're on the wrong side of humanity. And you're on the wrong side of history. Governments cannot give harbor to terrorists.
Benjamin Netanyahu just destroyed Keir Starmer live on global television. In front of world leaders, the Israeli Prime Minister accused Britain of betrayal, exposing what he called the deepest act of political dishonor in modern history. Cameras flashed, diplomats froze. Within seconds, headlines erupted. Netanyahu destroys Starmer. The broadcast didn't sound like a speech. It sounded like a verdict, and by the time it ended, Britain was no longer defending policy. It was defending its reputation.
It harbors terrorists. It finances Hamas. It gives its terrorist chieftains sumptuous villas. It gives them everything.
The room froze. A few pens dropped. A ripple of gasps swept through the crowd. Within seconds, phones started vibrating across the press gallery. Producers barked into headsets. Headlines were already being drafted before he even took a breath. On every live stream, the lower ticker flashed, Netanyahu condemns Starmer, calls UK betrayal historic. He wasn't done. The camera zoomed in as he lifted a stack of papers, each one marked confidential United Kingdom. They weren't props, they were receipts. Classified communications between Downing Street and organizations linked to Hamas.
And I say to Qatar and all nations who harbor terrorists, you either expel them or you bring them to justice. Because if you don't, we will.
The very groups Israel accused of terrorism. Netanyahu's tone never changed. No shouting, no theatrics, just the kind of quiet fury that cuts deeper than rage. For a moment, the room didn't move. Then came the first flashbulbs. Diplomats scrambled out of their seats. An Israeli aide whispered something to the press secretary, who looked pale. Reporters started tweeting fragments of what they'd just seen, and the global meltdown began in real time. Within 5 minutes, British newsrooms were on fire. Jerusalem explodes. Netanyahu exposes labor links to Hamas. By the time the feed hit London, chaos had taken hold. Starmer's office went into full lockdown. The Foreign Office held emergency calls with the Israeli ambassador. The BBC interrupted scheduled programming with the breaking headline, Netanyahu accuses Britain of betrayal. Every outlet from CNN to Sky News replayed the same clip. Netanyahu leaning into the microphone, voice steady as steel. While British soldiers once fought beside us against terror, their government now sides with those who fund it. The statement hit like a thunderclap. It wasn't just an accusation, it was an indictment of an entire government. Inside Westminster, silence turned to shouting. Advisors were yanked from dinner tables, phones buzzing nonstop. One insider described the scene inside Number 10 as pandemonium with suits. Another said it felt like a slow-motion car crash we can't look away from. I could never understand how this simple truth evades the leaders of France, Britain, Canada, and others. They're now proposing to establish a Palestinian state and reward these murderers with the ultimate prize. And the world was watching. By midnight, the clip had been viewed more than 30 million times online. Hashtags like "Dies Britain Betrayed" and "Die Netanyahu Live" was trending in every major city. The diplomatic fallout had officially begun. As dawn broke over London, the second wave hit. Israeli media released the full footage, uncut, uncensored, and undeniable. Netanyahu could be seen holding up one of the classified memos. The header read, "Office of the Prime Minister, Confidential Foreign Liaison." It detailed informal consultations with representatives of a Palestinian group under partial sanctions. Analysts called it a political detonation live on air. The Financial Times headline captured the mood. Netanyahu drops bombshell, UK caught in covert talks.
These three leaders effectively said They want Hamas to remain in power. They want Israel to stand down and accept that Hamas's army of mass murderers will survive, rebuild, and repeat the October 7th massacre.
Downing Street moved fast to deny it all. A spokesman claimed the documents were taken out of context and accused foreign actors of misinformation. But the damage was done. Within hours, insiders leaked screenshots of the very emails Netanyahu had displayed, complete with digital signatures from government servers. The denials collapsed instantly. Public opinion shifted overnight. On talk radio and breakfast news, callers demanded answers. How could this happen? One veteran asked on air. We fought with Israel, we shared intelligence, and now we're the villains? It wasn't Netanyahu attacking Britain, it was Netanyahu exposing Britain. The narrative flipped faster than anyone could control it. Labor's image of moral diplomacy was torn apart by one live broadcast. By evening, Number 10 had turned into a bunker. Staff arrived with overnight bags, lights stayed on past 3 a.m. Emergency strategy meetings blurred into shouting matches. Aides argued about whether Starmer should apologize, deny, or stay silent. None of the options looked safe.
These leaders may think that they're advancing peace. They're not. They're emboldening Hamas to continue fighting.
Starmer's statement came at dawn. He stood before cameras, jaw tight, trying to hold composure. The Prime Minister of Israel is misinformed, he said flatly. The United Kingdom stands for peace and integrity. But when a reporter shouted, "Did you lie about secret communications?" The silence that followed said everything. Within minutes, intelligence officials began distancing themselves. No one at MI6 would confirm Downing Street's version. Defense insiders told the press off the record that some outreach had taken place, but under diplomatic discretion. Translation: it happened. Leaked messages from cabinet members poured gasoline on the fire. One minister texted a journalist, "We're finished if this sticks." Another simply wrote, "He's destroyed everything." At the Foreign Office, civil servants described scenes of panic unseen since the Suez Crisis. Veteran diplomats who had served under 5 different prime ministers admitted they'd never seen morale this low. Some quietly warned that international trust built over decades was evaporating overnight. Markets noticed too. The pound slipped against the dollar. Defense stocks tanked. Israeli tech firms paused London investments. Economists warned this wasn't just a PR disaster, it was the start of a credibility collapse. As the sun rose, Westminster's skyline looked unchanged, but inside its walls, history had already shifted. Netanyahu's words hadn't just humiliated a government, they'd reopened the question of what Britain stood for and whether its leaders still knew the answer. The global mood shifted fast. Within hours of Netanyahu's televised strike, Britain found itself alone on the world stage. The United States didn't wait for diplomacy. It released a statement from the Pentagon that cut through the noise. The United Kingdom's recent actions raised serious questions about its reliability as a NATO partner. The message was short, deliberate, and devastating. It signaled exactly what everyone already knew: Washington had lost patience. In Europe, the silence was louder than words. France and Germany refused to comment, a move that, in diplomatic language, meant one thing: disapproval. Officials in Brussels described it as strategic distancing. Even Canada, Britain's oldest ally after the US, offered nothing beyond a lukewarm call for stability. The optics were catastrophic. By the next morning, defense contractors were already pulling out. 2 major aerospace firms froze their joint projects with British partners. Investors began offloading shares connected to military production and tech exports. A senior analyst told Reuters, "This is how credibility collapses, not in a year, but in a single news cycle." Veterans didn't hold back either. Former commanders who once praised Starmer's restraint now turned on him completely. A retired colonel described it as the betrayal of brotherhood. He said Britain had abandoned those who stood shoulder to shoulder in combat zones from Kabul to Gaza. Their open letters spread like wildfire across social media, shared with captions like, We remember who stood with us. Meanwhile, Israel's foreign ministry hinted there was more coming. A senior official promised total transparency for the world to see, teasing another batch of leaked communications. Reporters in Tel Aviv called it a slow bleed strategy. Each revelation timed to keep Britain's government off balance. The message was unmistakable. Israel wasn't backing down, and this was just the beginning. As the world turned its eyes toward Britain, the streets began to roar. In London, thousands filled Parliament Square waving Israeli flags alongside Union Jacks. Veterans in uniform stood shoulder to shoulder with families carrying hand-painted signs, "We stand with Israel." In Manchester and Birmingham, spontaneous marches shut down traffic for miles, but not every street felt safe. Across Jewish neighborhoods, police increased patrols after a wave of anti-Semitic incidents hit record highs. Synagogues installed extra security, schools shortened their hours, and the headlines painted a grim picture, a nation tearing itself apart. News anchors struggled to keep up. Every outlet replayed the same viral clip, Netanyahu holding up the leaked memos and saying, "While British soldiers fought beside us, your government turned away." It became the defining soundbite of the week. Commentators called it the sentence that broke Labour. Poll numbers confirmed it. Labour's approval crashed below 25%. Reform UK surged into second place nationally. Conservative strategists quietly admitted they'd never seen such a collapse outside wartime. Even within Labour, MPs were whispering what no one dared say aloud, that Keir Starmer's leadership might not survive the month. And through it all, the internet kept boiling. Hashtag Britain Betrayed stayed at the top of global trends for 3 straight days. Memes, protest videos, speeches, and angry editorials flooded every corner of the digital space. Like in cafes, taxis, and offices, the same phrase echoed again and again: "We've lost our way." Then came the final blow. Late Saturday night, new leaks began to circulate, this time not from Israel, but from inside London itself. Anonymous intelligence officers claimed that Downing Street had interfered with Israeli counter-terrorism operations, compromising the safety of both nations. The accusation was so severe that even government-friendly outlets couldn't ignore it. By Sunday morning, Parliament was in uproar. Opposition leaders demanded a criminal inquiry under the Terrorism Act. Legal experts warned that if confirmed, the leaks could amount to breaches of national security. The word resignation started to echo through Westminster's corridors like a drumbeat. The collapse accelerated. Junior ministers began resigning before breakfast. By noon, 3 had stepped down, each one citing ethical concerns. Backbench MPs started circulating letters demanding a leadership challenge. The party that promised stability had descended into chaos. And then, just as Britain tried to catch its breath, Israel struck again. Netanyahu's office announced another live press conference for Sunday night. The teaser line was chilling. "We will show the world what betrayal really looks like." Inside number 10, aides worked in silence, staring at screens as the clock ticked toward disaster. No one dared predict what would come next. Some whispered that the Prime Minister might not last another 48 hours. Markets trembled, allies distanced, citizens protested, and across Britain, one truth settled in like a storm cloud. This wasn't just a diplomatic spat, it was the unraveling of a government. By midnight, commentators were calling it the Downing Street meltdown. The phrase captured everything: humiliation abroad, fury at home, and the collapse of trust that once defined British politics. The narrator's voice cut through the noise like a warning. Britain is on the edge of a diplomatic breakdown. The next 24 hours could end a government or redefine a nation. Britain stands humiliated, its government unraveling in real time. Stay with us, subscribe now, because the next revelation could finish Starmer's career for good.